to begin discussions of dealing with fuel price hike in Nigeria. As you've heard from that report coming from our Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, he is telling us that we should calm down and not necessarily worry about the hike in fuel price. That is just seeming that way in the beginning, and things will still return to normalcy. So what are your thoughts on the advice of the Senate President? At this point in time, do you think Nigerians have the patience to wait for market forces to stabilize price of fuel price increase?
So I think it's not coming as a shock to Nigerians, and Nigerians are even expecting more, simply because between May 2023 and now, fuel prices have increased by over 400%. It is very, very absurd, except in countries like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina that have a very sporadic increase in prices. In a standard civilized economy, you can't increase prices like that. When something like that happened in Germany, in fact, it wasn't even up to 50% increase. All of them parked their cars on their road, and the government had to come and pay for them to take it back to the system. But are we going to have another increase in fuel prices? So, for example, the foreign exchange has devalued by about 28% here between January and October this year. So, as at same May 2023, it was like about 350 thereabout, the official exchange rate. Now it's like about 1,610. If the foreign exchange devalues further to, let's say, 2,000, of course the prices of fuel is also going to increase. So whether it's going to go up or it's going to go down, there's still even a bit of intervention, because we see that NNPC is owing like about 6 billion debt that they have to settle, and also we're saying that Dangote that we are solely relying on, that is has a 650,000 liters capacity a day. In fact, what the government is offering now is just like about 540 to be shared, 540 liters of crude oil a day to be shared, not for Dangote alone. We have Water Smith and the other refineries in Nigeria that are also going to be struggling for that. So that simply means that Dangote needs to further import crude oil. Now, if it's going to be importing the other fraction to be able to optimize that full capacity, of course, it's not going to be paying naira for it. It's going to be paying dollar. Now, that is also if we have further crisis that allows the prices of crude oil to increase from $70 per barrel within the range of 70-75, which it is today, and it goes up. So if you translate that, it's actually going to see more increase. But what is a sustainable solution for this country? The Senate President did not mention that. He only mentioned that market forces are going to influence it. If market forces actually influence it, of course, the price is going to be high. Nobody knows the exact price of Dangote selling to the independent marketers or even to NNPCL. Is there a bit of differentiation? Don't let me say subsidy, because the safe subsidy is gone. Is there a bit of intervention or a differentiation or a little margin that the NNPCL is also protecting? We cannot say that for now, but we feel that there is increased transparency, but it's still not a full transparent regime that is currently undergoing within the Nigerian petroleum sector.
All right, thank you very much for that. And now to Professor Ezekiel Agbalagba, who is joining us live from Delta State. What are your thoughts about
there's a shadow on your face
comment when it comes to managing this hiking fuel subsidy? What are your thoughts on that? Okay, since we do not have him at this time, so I'll to go on with you. So there are reports by political leaders that say that in a lot of countries around the world, it's rare that you would find places that they sell petrol for less than $1. But if we are looking at the standard of living in these various countries that Nigeria is being compared to, if we are looking at their minimum wage compared to Nigeria, is it still right for our leaders to be saying that, after all, in places around the world, it's rare you see places that petrol is being sold per liter for less than $1? If we are to compare those factors of our minimum wage to the pump price of fuel of Nigeria and to other countries, is that justifiable?
So comparing just one factor is total disarray, simply because, first, how many of those in those countries, how many cars are on the road? What is their functional transport system? How many people even depend on their cars for them to move? We have rail system, functional rail system. We have intercity bus system. if you look at the Nigerian intercity bus system, how effective is it? In Lagos Road alone, that we have over 6 million cars that are plowing Lagos Road, which is also a very great, although the cars have reduced now because the Senate President said someone that have 5 cars before we just have to drive 1 or 2 cars. For someone that has only 1 before, he has to resort back to bicycle, and if he cannot even maintain his bicycle, he has to resort to his leg. So you don't just look at the numbers of cars alone. Yeah, it's fine to say that the prices of crude oil is not sold less than $1 a day when you're looking at those particular instances, but you also need to consider other things thereabout. Aside from the fuels are not just used for cars. Also, what is the accessibility to supply, power supply? This fuel is also used majorly by Nigerian small and medium scale businesses to be able to power their machines. In those other countries, there is electricity, standard electricity that you could leverage on. You don't need to even leverage on fuel for you to be able to power your machines, or for you to first, just as a means of intercity movement. And in fact, they also have other forms of fueling their vehicles. We have the likes of CNG, we have the likes of LNG, we have the likes of LPGs and other forms. How many of them is currently being optimized in Nigeria? Of course, we see that the government is trying to do something within that sector, but how effective is it? What is the sustainability of it? And let's say there is even no subsidy on fuel. Where is that money going to? We've seen that over the last 8 to 10 months, we've seen that FAC has always been on the increase. Now, if this FAC has been on the increase, why is it that the governors are still complaining that they are not able to pay the minimum wage of 70,000? What is the ripple effect? Are the farmers able to go back to their farms? What is the effect that we are able to see that this investment, are we having more sustainable roads? Is the electricity supply much more consistent? If you are saying no more subsidy, at least let me even see the investment in development infrastructure that you are putting that money to. Do you want to take the money from subsidies to go and build a coastal road from Lagos to Calabar? Is that the major need for Nigeria now? How functional is the Nigerian rail system? How functional is the Nigerian even waterway systems? What are the means of transportation? What can go, people are not even bothered about paying a higher price for petrol, but if they are able to see the ripple effect of these funds being used in development of other sectors of the Nigeria.
Okay, yeah. So when we began the discussion, we were talking about the issue of dollar. So if dollar rises again, that means Nigerians are in trouble, because definitely the price of exchange rate is going to increase. So the pump price too is still going to increase. So if we are battling with this situation on and on, let's even first of all talk about the steps that the government is trying to take in stabilizing the naira to dollar to naira exchange rate. So far, how would you rate it? Because it's been going on for a while now, and then still it's increasing, not decreasing. Or would see it increasing, we'll see decreasing, and then it's just jumping. It is not yet balanced. What seems to be missing? What are we not getting right yet?
So even as we speak, there is no full deregulation of the foreign exchange rate system. So we've seen that the CBN have come up with several schemes. We have the wholesale auction system, we've had the retail Dutch auction systems, and we've seen that, the CBN is coming to intervene here and there. So that simply means that the average is not playing at the full market forces. But also, why is the government trying to do this? If you look at it, over the last 1 year, government has already increased, government exposure to World Bank has increased by about 2.2 billion. That is like about 14.4% increase, making Nigeria the 3rd largest debtor to World Bank. So if you see that over the last few years you want to receive more loan from IMF, you want to receive more loan from World Bank, you first need to have a bit of retrospect. What happened when this same thing happened during the structural adjustment program in the 1970s? We see that did it make the Nigerian economy better, or did it make the Nigerian economy worse? So the reason of having this free float of exchange is for you to be able to get a higher debt into your system from international partners. But is that really addressing the real development of Nigeria? Now, if you look at it, even trade has even declined. The import into Nigeria has already declined. Export too is also on the further decline thereabout. So is the government really addressing the core issues of this, or are we still trying to just try to play some gimmicks to ensure that we have more stable books so as we can be able to take in more debt into the system, then I think the real question is not being addressed, because we cannot say that the foreign exchange is fully liberalized. If it's fully liberalized, the CBN does not need to have a way of intervening into the system at all. And in fact, we cannot even track or even monitor the total flow of naira to dollar or foreign international exchange that is happening within the Nigerian space. Everything, the CBN does not even have the enough resources to see that this is the total dollar trade. A lot of this is still happening within the informal market, which is not within the coffers of the CBN. A lot of bureau exchange are still not using the system put in place for them to be able to trade this particular thing. And how many of it is it coming directly from the government's purse? How many of it is used for core business? How many of it is really driving the trade in Nigeria? Those are questions we really need to ask. But is the government trying to do something? Yes, the government has an agenda to be able to get more money, of course, through foreign debt. But is that sustainable for the development of Nigerian economy? I think those are some questions we need to be able to put much more approach to for us to be able to address the real issue about it.
Okay, all right. So it seems as if the way things are, a lot of things are happening just right under the nose of the federal government. So if they are aware of it, or if they are not aware of it, I think that's one of the questions that we need to be asking. If they are aware of it, why are they not taking any drastic measure to curb it? Well, these are things that we'll still be discussing. But before we go on, let us go on this commercial. Glad to have you back in just joining us. This is Firecrackers, and we're talking about dealing with fuel price increase once again in Nigeria. So we were talking about the issue of fuel, we're talking about the issue of debt being one of the reasons we will continually struggle with exchange rate. You know, recently President Bola Tinubu asked for pardon for the debt. I think probably it was expected that what happened during the Obasanjo regime is still going to take place again this time. But if, let's assume theoretically, that we get pardoned for all this debt that we are owing, do you think that would have a difference in our economy, or are we just starting back from square one because we've not really put a lot of things in place to cushion or, well, to receive us being pardoned for all this debt?
Now, if they are going to pardon the debt, of course, they are going to give certain conditions. Some of the conditions which we are saying that they have to increase tax rate is even sustainable for Nigeria. But before you even look at all those conditions, free float of the naira, in fact, these were some of the conditions that had to be in place before they even advance those further debt that they provided. So talking about a pardon is not even the way to go, because you need, there's no free lunch in Freetown. If I'm pardoning your debt, of course, I need to get another incentive in one way or the other. But the point of call is, what exactly is this money used for? Nigeria has taken 2.2 billion from World Bank over the last 1 year. What significant investment have we seen in the Nigerian infrastructure? What new roads have we seen? What new systems have we seen that is able to advance the lives of Nigerians? Rather, we've seen that people are getting poorer and poorer. So am I saying that you're increasing the debt level and you're also increasing the poverty level of Nigeria? Of course, we've seen that inflation has already reduced a bit. But why did inflation really reduce a bit from 34% to within the range of 32%? It's simply because of the food index. We are seeing more of adverse season. The new yam is out. We're seeing more produce from the farms. But is it even sustainable? Can this even be sustained over the long period? So the point of call is not really should there be pardon for the debt, and I think it's not even the best approach. You are not going to be able to have a strong footing when you ask for pardon of the debt, because they are going to ask you to devalue your naira the more. And if you have a further devaluation on the naira, it means people are eventually going to go poorer, and we are going to see those ripple effects. So the point of call is not asking for debt pardon. Debt pardon is not even the saving grace of lifetime. But the major thing is for the government to be able to sit tight. Government needs to cut down its expenses. There's a lot of unnecessary spending that is happening within the government coffers. The government needs to cut down its excesses and cut down its spending and focus on things that are involved in driving development within Nigeria. A lot of manufacturing companies are going down. A lot of SME businesses are closing down. It's not even easy for businesses to be able to scale. The core drivers of Nigeria's economy, which is more or less manufacturing industry, is not receiving that. It's not receiving that particular boom. We are seeing more of services industry doing more. I'm not saying services are not good. Of course, we are moving into the age of the digital age, or the new age, where we have digital technology or artificial intelligence, machine learning driving the norms. But for the core of a nation to develop is based on the manufacturing sector, the agricultural sector, the industry sector. Nigerians need to go through that industrial age. Where is the Ajaokuta steel? Where is do we have more plants? We've seen a lot of manufacturing companies leave the shores of Nigeria. It's only a few like Toleram that are still able to weather the storms and taken over by the local indigenous manufacturing companies. So, but the thing is, the infrastructures, we are not seeing ripple development in infrastructures. We are not also seeing ripple development in other societal factors of Nigeria. So I think there's a lot of questions that should be asked. Our government is not providing us enough clarification, but we think that we have to take in more depth than ask for a pardon later. We are going to be only bringing our hands in our, we are going to bring in our heads in our hands, discussing with these people. We will not be able to have a strong bargain when we are discussing with the international agencies that are availing us those debts.
You're right, because if we look at Nigeria now, our economy is in a way very closely tied to energy. We need energy in a way to also drive the economy, because even for producers, be it on the large scale or on the small scale, they all need energy. And then the fact that petroleum price per liter is getting higher and higher, and then if we are to go by the advice of the Senate President, who is advising us to tighten our seatbelt. But looking at that now, what advice would you even give to Nigeria dealing with this? Because definitely everyone in the market, they will be adding the extra cost they have to spend on fuel. They will be adding it on the commodities that they are selling or the services they are providing to Nigerians. So how do Nigerians now deal with this hike in fuel price? What can we do to at least survive to the next day, because things are getting difficult? You see the road, a lot of people are not going out with their cars anymore. People are walking more. I don't know if this is a sort of means to make us all physically fit, but not a lot of people are buying the idea. So what do Nigerians do now?
So people might even be walking and they drop dead on the road, yes, simply because they are hungry. So I think Nigerians are a bit resilient. Although protest is not the way to go, we need active engagement with those in authority. There is no country in the world that is working without a form of subsidy, right? So I'm not saying that it's sustainable to have. You might decide to take off subsidy from fuel. You might decide to take off incentive from, so it might be on electricity or thereabout, in which you are providing a bit of relief. In other places, basic things like feeding, clothing, shelter are basic things that government provide incentive on. It is cheaper. When people are full, people will never even have the ability. People will say, at least I'm able to live. A large number of Nigerians are living below $1 a day. Over 100 million Nigerians are below the poverty line. So the only thing is you need to work more, right? You need to put in more hours. But even for you to even replenish the energy that you're going to be able to use to work more, there is no commensurate increase in the salaries or the remuneration that is availed by companies, because a lot of companies are operating at very low margins. It's only in the services sector we see a very high margin, as we're seeing, and we've seen some decline half-year profit in billions, which is quite commendable based on their business strategy or based on the business model they've implemented. But we are not seeing that sporadic increase in salaries or compensation. So it simply means people have to take on more jobs, or people have to look for other means to survive. But it's not a friendly situation for Nigerians now at this point in time. And those that even went to protest during the time of August 1 to August 10, some of them are still in prison right up to now. So will protest be the right way to go about this point in time? I don't think so. I think it's more for us to engage the government, and I think the traditional leaders too could also help, or those that are in the sphere of influence can also help in engaging the government, not on the right things to do, not unveiling a golden statue for the first lady in Nigeria, as we saw the prominent traditional leader in the western region of Nigeria did. I think you should be able to engage the government on how to make it easier for people to live and people to survive. Nigeria is at the verge of failure, in which by the time the hunger protest now comes in, we don't want to record as much casualties as we see going towards that line, because it's not a friendly situation for Nigeria at all at this point in time.
Okay, all right. So if you are to look at Dangote refinery, I'd say that it probably opened the door of opportunities for a lot of people in Nigeria. If you're looking at it from the employment angle, and also probably an inspiration to other people who have been nurturing the dream of starting their own refinery, but think that the Nigerian market might not be so friendly to taking such steps. We also have investors from South Korea who are saying that they want to start lots of refineries too in Nigeria. So, well, if you are to go by what the Senate President said, do you think that these forces, maybe in a year's time or a couple of months' time, if we are lucky, if they start refining crude oil too in Nigeria, do you think that might bring the price down to a significant amount that a lot of Nigerians would actually attest to the fact that, okay, yes, things are going right in the country?
We are still working on the past. The world has moved. In fact, we now have robot machines. We have robot vehicles that are even powered on electric vehicles. If you even look at even the high cost of electricity at 229 per kilowatt hour, it is even cheaper than even the price of fuel. Right, and it's even cheaper, a bit cheaper than even the price that we want to use to power our CNG vehicle. An average, at least to fill up a CNG tank for 1 liter equivalent or 1 meter cube is like about 230 to 260. Even at the expensive band A tariff, right, a kilowatt hour is like about 229 thereabout. It's still even much more cheaper. The world is moving advanced. I don't think it is sporadic for Nigerians to be happy about investment in developing refineries when the world is moving to electric vehicles and even moving to advanced schemes. Not because it is bad, right? South Korea investment in Nigeria to revitalize the 4 refineries, local refineries that we happening. We also see the likes of Watersmith refineries, and we also see the likes of BUA and some other people going to invest in refineries. But we are playing a laggard game. We are only going to be playing at the second phase where the world is moving beyond. The world has moved beyond electricity. In fact, in Nigeria, the full step of people working in Japan, the full step of people working on the road is able to generate electricity and is able to generate energy. So people are even on the street. You are able to see solar energies in which you have your electric vehicles being powered on it. You have your vehicular movement being automatically powered while you driving on the street. So I don't think the bone of contention here is to develop the refineries. Of course, if we have investment in the refineries and we have more refineries, it's going to help. But one thing we should even focus on is that will the refinery be able to even get the enough crude oil within Nigeria? For example, Dangote has a $650,000 barrel per day. The government is sharing just $590,000, 590,000 liters across all the refineries in Nigeria. So if you have more refineries, another question that is going to arise is the demand for the crude oil. Will the local Nigerian crude oil be able to feed it? We should not forget that a lot of Nigerian crude oil is already on forward contract. A lot of Nigerian crude oil have been pledged as debt that we are not even meeting up to the OPEC quota, and we have to fulfill these obligations, because if you don't even have enough thing, the only thing Nigeria can use to pledge to get more loans in the international market is the crude oil. If you have pledged majority of this, you've pledged over 1 million liters of crude oil as debt. So if you do you want to have a situation whereby we have 10 functional refineries, and those refineries have to go and even import the crude oil that they are going to use to produce and meet a further demand. So I think Nigeria should look beyond the refinery, the petroleum. Nigeria should invest in the right things, invest in the manufacturing industry, invest in the industrial sector of the economy, invest in agriculture, in which can generate greater returns. There is nothing that is as sustainable as investing in agriculture. I think the mistake of Olebere of facing just crude oil, you found a new bride and you forgot about the other ones, is still what Nigeria is going to suffer for. And we continue to dwell on this, we will continue to be at the losing end. We are not going to really be able to advance global development and position Nigeria as it really meant to be.
Thank you. All right. So when we are talking about production, I love the analogy that you made of having a new bride and forgetting about the old ones at home. But if we look at the attitude of Nigerians generally, a lot of Nigerians do not necessarily see agriculture as a fancy job. It's not something that you would see a school graduate saying that, okay, I want to take up and cutlass, I want to start farming, even if it's subsistent farming, something that's small, just for you and your family. It's rare you see things like that. that going on. So now, what do we accustom blame to? Is it the federal government that is not doing enough in making people embrace agriculture, or is just that Nigerians generally don't really care about farming, or this is something we actually need? It's a basic need of life, food. So who exactly are we going to blame in that? Nigerians or the federal government?
So I think the federal government has a role to play in it. Of course, Nigerian, everybody wants to be able to afford a meal, a basic meal. Everybody wants to be able to afford or feed himself, clothe himself, provide shelter for himself. If something is delivering appropriate returns and delivering appropriate profit, of course, why would I want to invest in that? Why would I not want to even go into that? Why would I want to go into farming which is sustainable and it is scalable, right? So I think the incentives or the education has not been properly propagated. We've seen so many countries that focus majorly on farming and focusing majorly on agriculture. Agriculture is the lifeline of the society, and there is no way you can get it wrong with agriculture, because people are surely going to eat. Even if they fast for several days, they are eventually going to break their fast, and the only way they can break their fast is that, oh, they want to eat food. There are different aspects of agriculture. Some will say, oh, they are vegetarians, they don't eat meat, but at least they eat food, right? So if they are going to refill their tank or refill their bosom, of course, it's who told you that agriculture is not lucrative? We've seen mechanized farming in which you're able to get maximum yield on it, not the mutually grain corns that we are seeing this time around, or the genetic GMOs that we are seeing all around. No, we need things that is able to scale, right? Things that is able to advance and be able to generate more income from it. This Nigeria, prior to the discovery of Olibiri, of course, it was agriculture that sustained the Nigerian economy. We've seen the granite pyramids of Kano, we've seen the cocoa malls of the western region, we've seen the oil palms of the eastern region and the southern region. In fact, other countries came to Nigeria to be able to learn agriculture, but now they are even doing better in agriculture than they are not relying on oil. So the sole dependence on oil is not the way to go. Even the Middle East have even moved away from the oil crisis. Look at United Arab Emirates is now focusing on tourism and attractiveness and focusing on development. Formerly, the Middle East was majorly known for oil, but they are making much more money from it. That doesn't mean that the wealth from oil is not still there, right? In the likes of Qatar, Kuwait, and the other regions. But Nigeria's sole dependence of oil on oil is a no-no. Over 92% of total Nigerians' income is from sale of crude oil and natural gas. Manufacturing and the rest of them, other things are going to advance further development is not contributing up to 10%. So I think Nigeria is not investing in the federal government is not encouraging or creating a situation for investment in the right sectors. Of course, the federal government is not sufficient to be able to do it alone. We need a form of private-public partnership. We also need to ensure that Nigeria is the right hub for investors to come in and invest. Or we see that the CBN just want to roll out a 300 billion or more bills. Of course, you just want to bring in so much money for people to be able to invest over the short term and get their returns back. But I don't think that is going to sustain the economy over the long run. I think the CBN and the federal government will invest in the things that make it easier for people to be able to do business. How many businesses can really survive at 27.25% monetary policy rate is quite crazy. How many of them are able to even have access to funding to be able to even develop, and what support is the government even providing to those that are in active production and is going to develop that? Is it a subsidized transport schemes? How many buses? Of course, I've seen some private organizations and some religious organizations offering free buses for people, but how long is that going to be? Do we want to continue to be at the mercy of someone's decision or offering free buses to people, or free subsidized transport scheme to people? So I think the federal government should focus more on investing in the active drivers of the economy and not just sit down and say that we are going to intervene in due course. That due course might never come.
Okay.